Evening. Does anyone want a free small black pug? Because I've got one here that is doing my head in. She literally hasn't stopped shouting her head off all day. It's continuous. Tried all the tricks of standing in front of her, choking her out, kicking the fuck out of her. I'm only joking. So yeah, if you hear any background noise, it's probably just the dogs fighting. I said I would record a little video to talk about our best pint of our lives so far. I know I put a little post out yesterday asking you guys for your own stories, and that could be like the tastiest pint you've ever had, the best pint, the pint that you've drunk and you've gone, this is mint, this is a bit of me. It could be a pint of Guinness in Temple Bar, could be anything, you know, pint of beer on the beach in somewhere exotic, or it could be a situational pint, so the first beer that you have on holiday, first beer that you have as a married man, I don't know. So yeah, we've had a few little stories in so far, but wanted to quickly talk through some of mine because it made me sort of sit and think of all the pints that I've had in my life, especially after doing 186 and a half days sober. It's made me appreciate drinking a little bit more, if that makes any sort of sense at all. I've only drank twice since deciding to break my sober little ban on my birthday. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely made me reevaluate my own relationship with alcohol and my attitude towards alcohol, and sitting down and writing down my little beer story, the best pints I've had, it's made me also kind of realise that maybe it's not about the drinking and maybe it's about the people. But anyway, that's another story. So yeah, I'm going to start with story number one. So the first one that sprung into my head the first time that I drank a beer and had that real feeling of like, oh my god, this is mint, what a day. What an experience was probably back in 2015, 2016. Obviously I've been drinking for years prior to that, but it was with Darlington Ladies Rugby Club. I'd kind of been playing for them on and off that season because I'd moved down to Leicester in another life, and went back to play for them for the last few games of the season, in which we managed to get through to some sort of cup final. I have no idea what it was called back then, but it was basically the championship clubs participated in this cup, and we managed to get all the way through to the final of that, which was a pretty big achievement for us. And also in the same year we managed to finally win the league after me playing for Darlington for years at that point. We managed to finally come top of the league that we played in, which was mint. The reason that the beer is so memorable to me is that at half time we already knew that we'd won the league. Well, we went in at half time and we knew what score we needed to be on for us to win the league, to leapfrog Sheffield Tigers. I think it definitely was, because Sheffield were our number one nemesis at the time. So yeah, we managed to do that, and at half time I remember having beer in the changing rooms. I think I also remember ended up playing half the game stood out on the wing, which is not my usual position, and we had a few of the girls that were sort of retiring or coming to the end of their journeys at Darlington, taking kicks and just taking the mick all round really. But it was one of them where cracking it open, having that big victory drink was a good old time. Felt like we were doing the F1, shaking the cans up and covering ourselves in it. It was a class old time. So that was the first one that sprung into my head. Also sticking with the rugby theme, the second one that ever came into my head was my first legal beer at Mowden Rugby Club the day after my 18th birthday. I think it was the day after my 18th birthday. It might have been more like 2 or 3 days after my 18th birthday, because I actually turned 18 in Cavos, one of them shitty, awful 18 to 30 holidays with all the girls I went to school with, and had an absolutely amazing time. There's some other stories from that could be told but are not going to be told today. And it was just funny having my first legal pint at the rugby club, because I'd already been drinking pints and working behind the bar in there for about 2 years. I also remember, I think it cost £3.05. It might have been £2.95. I'm sure it used to be £2.95 for a pint of Foster's and £3.05 for a pint of Stella. Do you remember when they used to do that Stella 4? I think that's what it was. But yeah, it was cheap as chips. And then a night out in Dirty Darlow, finally legally allowed to drink. I had the fortune of being 18 but looking about 28 back then. I mean, I've always been this tall and this sort of size, so there was never any mistaking me for being younger than that. So there was plenty of places where I was going in waving my ID, just trying to prove that actually I am now 18 and I've been getting served in here for however long. Another one that's popped into my head as soon as I started thinking along the lines of beers and also rugby, it's the first thing that comes into my head. Any of you that have played rugby or been involved in rugby know that basically most rugby teams have a drinking problem, and sometimes a little bit of rugby occurs, and sometimes it's basically just an excuse for getting pissed. The third thing that sprung to my mind was beer in the rugby club bar at about 12:30, after skiving off my part-time job at the time, literally just disappearing at lunchtime and not coming back with my wages from that week in a little brown envelope, because we were off to Belgium, and having a pint in the club bar then before we set off to go to Belgium. It's probably one of them pinnacle moments, because fast forward about 14 hours and I think I'd lost my passport, my dignity, my wallet that had 150 quid's worth of cash in and about 300 quid's worth of euros in as well, which was all the money that I had to my name at that point, because I was an 18 and a half, 19-year-old student. And then all sorts of hilarity ensued, as you can imagine, but as you know, what goes on tour stays on tour. The cliff note highlights of that tour involved us all being dressed as mimes, boys and girls called Audrey, which is even more funny because that's my grandma's name, and all kinds of unrepeatable banter. But yeah, that was another one that sort of stuck out to me straight away, was that. Finally, on the theme of rugby, the other one that stuck out to me was just one of them moments that you'll remember I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. The Rugby World Cup 2019, sitting in the Model T in Darlington. Any of you that are from Darlow know, again, big strong rugby links to the Model T. In there at 9 o'clock in the morning, possibly even earlier than that, watching England beat New Zealand in the 2019 Rugby World Cup semi-final. I think if I remember right, I was a little bit hungover from the night before. At the time, I was working cutting the grass, I believe. Long story, but I was working as a grass cutter and I was grafting all the hours for peanuts, and went home the night before, probably after having a few beers with the lads that I worked with, to get up bright and early to watch England, what I thought was going to happen, get smashed by New Zealand in the World Cup semi. And the total opposite happened. Owen Farrell did his little smirk staring down the hacker, and some of you won't have a clue what I'm talking about, but those of you that do will know. My pint at half time during that game was one of them that's just quite memorable. There was a little feeling of, oh my god, we're actually going to do this, and it was dead exciting. I vaguely remember the 2003 World Cup final. I was only 10, but obviously I wasn't having pints at half time in that, but yeah, that one really sticks out to me. And then if you fast forward a week on from that, I was back in Darlow Rugby Club again for one of my best mates, Snooks. Sorry, 1 second. Shut up, shush. For one of my best mates, Snooks, Hindus, and obviously we got beat by the South Africans, which was a massive shame. But the day ended in me losing most of my clothes, losing my jeans, losing my brand new trainers, and being dressed as a geisha because I stole Snook's outfit off her. And I think if I remember rightly, we ended up singing Islands in the Stream in the rugby club bar. So another good drinking tale, but it's not going on the list of the best pints I've ever had. There's a few more that stuck out as well when I was sort of sat thinking. I was limiting myself to the amount of ones that I could think of related to rugby, because otherwise it was just going to turn into me talking about rugby rather than me talking about pints. And so far I haven't even really mentioned the name of any beers. I've just said I had a pint and then all sorts of craziness happened, which is a bit mad, isn't it? The next one that sprung straight into my head was the beer that 1 second, sorry. Shut up! Come here. Oh, this is where you're going to have to stay. Shush. Was the beer that me and Laura had at 8:30 in the morning in Wetherspoons in Newcastle, in the little student area. Those of you that know will know, because we drove up there to compete in a market final that we were dead excited to be competing in. Knew that we had the right date for one very specific reason, because the day was also my birthday. To get there and find out that we'd got the wrong place. We still reckon that we were told the wrong place to be sabotaged. But yeah, we'd made all these candles, got everyone hyped up, got all of like friends, family and that coming through to Newcastle on trains and all bloody sorts, because it was my birthday, to come and see us at the market, to then find out that we'd got the complete wrong date, which is just insanity. And it was a little bit like that moment in the In-Betweeners where Will and Simon and all the virgins go in the pub wanting to get served for the first time, and they end up having to order 3 carvery dinners. Me and Laura, at 27 and 30 years old, had to have a full English breakfast to be allowed one singular pint. And it was one of them where the hilarity just took over from the actual situation of thinking, what the fuck have we done? How have we managed to do this? So yeah, that one sticks in the memory bank. There's funnier bits about that I'll tell you another time when Laura's with me, because I wouldn't do it the service it deserves to tell you on my own. But it was a bloody funny experience for both of us, I tell you. Another one that sprung into my head as well was a beer that I had on my own at probably about a similar time. It was maybe more like 10:30 in the morning, after randomly, probably one of the most random things that I've participated in, passing my lifeguard exam. The reason that I'm saying that it's a random thing is that about 6 weeks before doing my lifeguard exam, I couldn't even really swim. I'm one of these people that just floats about in the water. I had absolutely no techers. For somebody that's relatively sporty and relatively capable of stuff like that, swimming was not my bag. It was a needs must at the time. I was desperate for a job. Got a job working as a gym instructor in this gym in Rugby. Again, Rugby the place, not Rugby the sport. So this is sort of to do with rugby, but this is Rugby the town in Leicestershire or Rutland or wherever it is, somewhere down there in the Midlands. And I couldn't quite believe that I'd passed. I had to tow this guy that was about 25 stone, swimming along under the chin. Any of you that have done the lifeguard exam, it was an absolute joke that I got paired with him. But I think he was the heaviest, and then I was the second heaviest at about half of his weight. So it was pretty hilarious, me having to tow him around. And it was more let's sit and have a pint out of genuine disbelief that I now have to potentially try and save people's lives. But in typical Sophie Craggs fashion, that job lasted about 6 weeks, because I thought this is absolute garbage and went and worked somewhere else. But yeah, I was still pretty proud of myself at the time for passing the exam. I came to a bit of a realisation during putting this little list together that maybe the beer isn't all that important, and maybe it's people that are more important, because all of these stories, the vast majority of them, involve some of my best mates in the world. And it kind of blew my mind a little bit that I was trying to put a list together of the best pints that I've ever drunk, and at no point did it actually have anything to do with any pints that I've drunk. It was all just about people and places and stories. So, you know, thinking about it as a bit of a wider thing, maybe that's what we're all trying to do all of the time. Sorry, 1 second, I am going to actually murder this small black dog if I can. Shut up, just be quiet. Look, sit on my knee again. Stop being wiggly, just sit there. So yeah, I came to the conclusion that people and places and stories to tell are probably the reason why the vast majority of us that drink in a healthy manner do it. It leaves you with a story to tell. And like some famous writer once said, no good story started with a salad. A lot of my very good stories have started with a pint of lager, and usually involve some aspect of rugby or Laura, usually. But yeah, they were the ones that sprung into my mind. I'm going to sit and do this again with Laura, because I think she'll have some funnier stories to tell. With regards to sort of beers that I've had that have really opened my eyes, I know a lot of people would frown at me for saying this, but I remember the first time that I ever went to a Brewdog bar and thinking, bloody hell, this is mental. It was probably back not long after the Brewdog in Newcastle first opened. Went in there as a student and thought, what on earth is going on? I'm used to spending £2.50 on a pint in Spoons, and it tasting like someone's farted in a glass, why not come to Brewdog and spend a £5 on something that tastes like someone's farted in a glass? I'm only joking, I do love craft beer, but that is what people always say. It's either fairy liquid or someone's farted in a glass. I also remember the first time I ever had a beer that was like dead outside the norm, and that was some of you'll probably remember it. I don't even know if it's still brewed. I think it is. Salty Kiss it was called. I can't even remember the brewery, but it was in, oh yeah I can, it was Magic Rock. I went to their little bar in Holmfirth not that long ago actually. It's a pretty cool little setup. But yeah, that was one of the first ones that I drank, and I thought, what on earth is this? Like, this is not like nothing I've ever tried before, and it sort of set my love for everything a little bit unusual from there. And it's still the same thing now. If I go in somewhere and I see something on a menu, I'll always have to try something that's dead weird. I tried one of the Mash Gang beers. I mentioned it on that last podcast me and Laura did, that mango marshmallow loveliness. That's mint. If you get a chance to try that, then try it. But there's another one of theirs that's a jalapeno sour, and that's definitely worth a try as well if you're into all your queer old do's. I remember the good old days when the most exciting it got was a lager and lime or a Guinness and blackcurrant. So there's all sorts of things out there to be tried these days, isn't there? But I am dead interested to hear all of you guys' beer stories. Drop us a comment, drop us a message to tell us about your beer stories. We're wanting to kind of expand the podcast a little bit as well, so doing things like that, not just me speaking myself, and not just me and Laura talking absolute garbage like we did last time, and me ranting on about a load of nonsense today of every beer that I've drank and every time I've got pissed with the rugby girls. We are wanting to do some more stories like that, so if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please let us know, because we do want to do some more bits like this, but we're also wanting people to come on that we can talk to about sort of their journey with drinking, their journey in beer, but not in the typical wanky way. We're not actually all that interested. We just want to hear your life story. We basically want to do a job interview with you, but without any of the professional gubbins on the side, because that is not my bag at all, as you can probably tell. But I'll talk to anyone about anything. The more interesting the story, the better. So we are on the lookout for people to come and speak with us and speak to us. It'll involve having a couple of beers. It'll probably involve a pub shouting at you as well at some point. But yeah, we want to show all of the things that are good about the beer industry, all of the things that are good about being a woman in the beer industry, all of the things that we love and that we like to participate in. We obviously want to talk about as well, and we want to talk to you guys about your stories, why you're like big beer drinkers, if you are big beer drinkers, why you have decided to move away from drinking, if that's something that you're doing. So if that's something that you think that you might be interested in, and you've got an interesting story to tell us, and you don't mind a little bit of banter and a little bit of ribbing and a little bit of nonsense from me and Laura, then yeah, we definitely want you. Please be quiet. And if anyone's got any tips for how to get a little black pug to stop just crying all the time for attention, then please let me know, because she takes the piss. Look at her. She is cute though, so we will let her off. But yeah, that's it for this week's instalment of literal nonsense. I hope you enjoyed my beer stories. I'm probably going to think of some more, so I'm sure we'll have to do a 2.0 of this. And me and Laura are going to do a version of this, like the two of us, because I think she'll have some hilarious things to say as well. And she is Scottish, so I mean, beer stories from someone Scottish, there's bound to be bloody hundreds of them, isn't there? But yeah, thank you again for listening. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to just participate in my self-indulgent rambling nonsense. But I do hope that you have enjoyed our tales, and if you are interested in having a bit of a sit down and a chat with us, and you're all right with us filming it and recording it, then let us know, because everyone's got a cool story to tell, and we're happy to have a chat with you. So happy Thursday, thanks for listening. Send us your beer stories and you might be in with a chance of winning a candle. Like, subscribe, share, all that nonsense as well. This will be up on Spotify too, which is pretty cool. I'm working out how to get it on all the other podcast platforms as well. We'll be sticking it up on YouTube again, obviously, and I'll clip some little bits out to make some lovely little highlights again for the Instagram reels. But it's a journey. Not drinking for 186.5 days really has given me an appreciation of this nonsense stuff, and apologies for it being a Bud Light. It's all I had in the house. But it's given me a newfound appreciation for that and a newfound appreciation for the stories that go alongside the beers. And that's led me to realise that the story is the good bit, the beer is just the lubricant. Happy Thursday. See you later, guys.